Hey everybody, welcome to Politics After Dark. My name is Nicole.
My name is Amy, and it's wonderful to have you here.
Yes, it is very wonderful to be with everybody again. And today, again, it will be just Amy and myself. And we have a special guest, somebody who I'm very honored to say is a friend and somebody who is running for Congress. And I will bring her on and introduce her as Miss Kina Collins. Hey, Kina,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm doing well. Do y'all need me to put my video on?
That
If
would be
it's up to
great.
you, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't want it to it might be a little unstable.
Ah,
So when I get a little bit stable, I'll go ahead and cut the video off.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
it is a pleasure to
So
meet you, Miss Kina. I've heard nothing but wonderful things from Miss Nicole about you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be on. I do
yes,
Well,
hop in
absolutely.
like 30 minutes, so sorry about that.
No
it's
worries,
okay.
no worries. We'll just get a couple of tidbits of information in about you. So before we get started, again, I wanted to introduce everybody. This is Kina Collins. She is uh, a wonderful progressive congresswoman. Well, hopefully, future congresswoman. She's running in Illinois 7, where Danny Davis finally is retired.
Thank
And
God.
thank God. But I've known Kina for many, many years working through Justice Democrats. I worked with her on her last run through Justice Democrats, and we've just kept in contact ever since. And as I've told Amy, like I would bug you once in a while, like, so do we know if he's retiring? Like, are you gonna run again? Like, we
Yes,
really
we
need
surely
you.
did.
So
Yes.
I've been keeping my voice in her ear. But I'm just so glad that we're finally to this point that he's retiring and you can run. And I think that you have the best shot
Thank
to
you.
uh to win this. So I mean, I'm gonna work my butt off to help.
Yay.
So, I've run for Congress before myself.
hmm
I get it, but I want to know from your perspective, what made you decide to run again?
Yeah, I think that Nicole, it's a really great question, Amy, but I think Nicole started off laying a good foundation about it. This has been years in the making, right? When I first initially ran against Representative Davis, a political coalition of groups in the district tapped me to run, and they said, we think it's time for Congressman Davis to pass the torch and bring in new leadership. And I thought, okay, well, why am I here? you know, and they said, well, we want you to run, for the seat. And I thought it was just like a very far stretch. And I voiced that, and they let me know, yeah, we are probably going to lose a couple of times because he had been in politics for 45 years. He had
Oh,
been a
wow.
councilman, a Cook County commissioner. He ran for Congress twice against an incumbent and lost against Curtis Collins twice. And then he became the congressman after Curtis Collins retired, which Curtis Collins was the first Black woman in the Midwest to be elected
Oh,
into
wow.
Congress. And this seat is very historic. Um, she was a part of helping form the Congressional Black Caucus and, served on different women caucuses and different things. And so this seat has a precedent of it takes a while for the voters to vet you. And so I'm running again now. I think the impetus has changed, Amy. Before I thought, yeah, we need new leadership. Now we need somebody in that seat who's going to fight fascism, right?
Yes,
This is
absolutely.
not just about electing a Democrat. It matters who that Democrat is, number one. And number two, they can't just be a rubber stamp for the Democratic Party. They
No.
have to be somebody who's going to build a movement from the ground up, fight for an economy built from the ground up, and center the voices of the people who are part of the working class, the working poor, on the margins, who are often left out of politics. And I
Right.
think there's nobody better to usher that in than our campaign, because we've been to every corner of this district. We've been through the really tough fights with party leadership and millionaires and billionaires and super PACs like APAC, right?
Mhm.
Who have come in and spent upwards of $1 million against, my candidacy. And so
Mhm.
I think the question that voters need to ask themselves when they go to the poll is not who is endorsing this candidate, which I think that's also a good part of the conversation. The question should be, who's opposing this candidate? And
Yes.
why do these billionaires and millionaires and party leadership and MAGA Republicans, why they don't want this particular person in the seat? And so we're ready for that fight.
And Tina, correct me if I'm wrong. When you ran last time, when he called in Nancy and Schumer, you lost very, very slimly.
Absolutely. So actually, a fun fact about that race was that, and you're referring to the 22 race,
Yeah.
midterm, was Joe Biden was president at the time, and he only endorsed in three Democratic primaries, and Illinois 7 was one of them, because that's how close our campaign got. It was the largest field operation that this district had seen in a generation. And we lost by less than 5,000 votes, which is the equivalent to one city ward in the city of Chicago. And so I think that set a precedent. It woke a lot of people up. It scared a lot of people. And I think that really, Amy, to dovetail off of what you said and to complete your question, Nicole, we're running because we got to finish what we start, right? Like, we do not build
Absolutely.
movements and then abandon those movements. We build
Right.
movements and we grow and we finish what we start. So yeah, that is true. We
Yeah.
lost by less than 5,000 votes.
Ooh,
Well,
and it was much
and
closer before the election.
and
Correct.
that is why I am not running this race this time, because I believe that there is someone within our primary pool of people in my local area that has a much better chance of actually getting into office than I do. And so I am supporting that person rather than running against them.
And Amy, I think that that's such an important, first of all, that's a very courageous stance to take. Number one, it's a very sensible and pragmatic stance. And it talks more about your character and getting your ego out of the situation and trying to push the
Absolutely.
movement forward. And I think that that's
Hmm.
something that we've experienced in this primary cycle. There have been
Yes.
two candidates who have decided to suspend their campaigns and join with us and consolidate with our campaign. And it's because we
Absolutely.
sat down and we said, okay, this is about getting a progressive in the seat. And it's not about
Hmm.
one person or politician coming to save us. It's about a collective and a movement that we're
Yes.
in. And so when we understand that we are a part of a movement, our self-interests do not outweigh the collective. And so I'm really like excited, and I'm happy to hear that you came to that conclusion and that you're actually helping that candidate. That's so
Oh,
important.
yeah. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about what we bring to the table
Right.
and how it's going to help the people. In my particular district, I have over 100 relatives in district.
Wow.
And so I look at it from a completely different perspective, like you do, of wait a minute, this isn't about me. This is about making sure of what they are going to have for their future, how they are going to be lifted up as people.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
see that in you and I appreciate it because it's huge. when
Yeah.
it's not about the person, it's about the office and what it means and how it can affect the future. So,
And just to not to cut you off, but to land that whole that my statement about this, the opposition of us,
mhm,
they're banking on that. They're banking on us fighting each other. They're
mhm,
banking on us not consolidating, not pulling our resources, our knowledge, our strength together as the collective, and they want us to fight internally so that they
yeah,
can win.
They obviously have not seen how well we all work together, like, in No King's protests, and
Yes.
yes,
like
yes.
it's
So,
about who's best fit for the job, not
in my
how many.
primary,
Go ahead.
I called the gentleman that I was primarying against from the very beginning of finding out that he had hopped into the race. And we talked, and we both realized that either candidate that the people chose was just as good for the people as the other. So we made a pledge from the word go. We would not mudsling, we would not mistreat each other, and we would stay in communication. And whoever got pushed forward into the actual race, that we would support the other one because there
I
was
love to
only the
hear that.
two of us.
Yeah,
I love
So it
that.
sounds like that's the type of
it
I hate to
is.
say it, but country politics and politics for the people that you're speaking to.
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton of stellar, I think budding progressives that are in the primary. I mean, our primary is a bit of a circus. It's like 17 candidates that have
Mm.
declared. It's coming down though, obviously, and then we have the petition process here in Illinois where everyone will not make the ballot that has declared so far. But what I will say is that it's been very civil amongst talking and meeting the other candidates. I feel like the platforms are really strong. And
Hmm.
this is what I like to tell people. They're like, why do you keep running for the seat? You're losing and da 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 da. Well, when I first started to run against Representative Davis, he was taking about 73% of the primary vote. And by the time now that he is retiring, he is barely scraping by with 50% of the vote. And I think that is movement politics because what
Yes.
that lets me know is we made a dent in this
Oh yeah.
district and we have been dragging this district to the left on the issue. And I can see it in the candidates who've announced. They're talking about Medicare for all. They're talking about the death gap that exists between Streeterville and Inglewood because of
Mm.
food deserts and healthcare deserts.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
talking about school closures and things like the abolition of ICE, right?
Hmm.
These were stances that our campaign had all the way back in 2020.
Yeah.
And people were like, that's radical. And to us, it was just common sense because
Right.
we
We've
knew,
always had
right? Like
that
where
stance.
this was, right? We knew this where this was hitting. But I say all of that to say that this is an opportunity for us to see how has our movement politics actually been impacting the electorate, and I see it in the policy platforms of the candidates that are jumping in this race.
That
Yeah.
makes sense to me. I have a question though. What are your top three items that you're looking at to make a difference for the people in your district?
Yeah, so my story is in gun violence prevention work. That is the cross that I will carry for the rest of my life. I actually witnessed a young person gunned down in my community. As a child, I knew the victim, I knew the shooter, and it changed the entire trajectory of my life. And it put me on this path of organizing around violence prevention work and violence interruption work that was alternative to just calling the police because a lot of the issues that I deal with in my community, which deals with everyday community violence, whether it be drive-by shootings or suicides by way of guns or domestic violence, right, is that poverty is at the root of a lot of this. And I knew
Yes.
even at a very young age that we cannot police poverty away. right? These are issues that we have to invest in people and we have to put our money where our mouth is. We cannot
Right.
talk about the violence in the city of Chicago or in this district without speaking about the economics of it. And so, gun violence is one of the top issues that are in public safety is an issue that's important to me. Illinois 7 actually has 26% of all gun violence in this state happens in our district and our tiny little district. And so it is something that's touched people from Westchester, Illinois, all the way to West Inglewood and our
Hmm.
district. And so I believe my story went from being survivor to public policy advocate to becoming the executive director of one of the largest gun violence prevention nonprofits here in the state of Illinois.
Hmm.
And also, it goes into the heart of one of my other issues, which is healthcare. Illinois 7 has, like I said, the largest death gap in America between Streeterville and West Inglewood. And basically, what that means is you have a 30-year life gap based off of a 30-minute car ride. If you live in Streeterville, you live to the age of 90. If you take a 30-minute car ride east to West Inglewood, a predominantly working poor Black community, your life expectancy drops to 60 years of age. And
Yep.
so, and we know what it is. It's the social determinants. It's the lack of proper food, clean air, clean water, housing, healthcare, all the things that we need. And then I think the final thing is building a strong local economy and restorative justice, right? Our district has a very high recidivism rate, and we
Hmm.
have something called $1 million blocks where the state and the city invest $1 million per block, which accounts to over $100 million a year incarcerating people
Oh
and
my
Black
God.
communities in our district. And how much more could our world be changed if that $100 million was invested into education, housing, healthcare, generational wealth, building generational wealth for the people in our district. And so,
Right.
public safety, healthcare, and I think transformational justice are like my top. But the core to all of that, it has a theme: big money in politics. We got to get it out. The
Yes.
gun lobby, big pharmaceutical companies,
Yep.
private insurance companies,
Yep.
real estate development, private equity, all of these people are leeching off of the working poor in my community and
Hmm.
these
APAC.
families, working class families, right? APAC is another one, right? It was actually interesting that the attack that APAC used on me was about defund the police, and she's not safe for the community because she wants to defund the police. Um, we've had several shootings in this district. I have never seen a representative of APAC talk to these survivor families, clean up the
Right.
blood that is left on
Yep.
the pavement in our communities. And so
Right.
I take ultimate offense to groups like that who just toss
Hmm.
money around but have never lived the economic realities or the everyday realities of people in our district, right? And so to undergird all of those three issues, Amy, is to say we have to get big money out of politics. We have to pass the For the People Act. We have to reform the gerrymandering that happens across the country. We have
Right.
to get rid of Citizens United. We have to protect the Voting Rights Act. None of this is going to matter if Trump and his cronies decide that they want to impede our constitutional right to a vote. And
Right.
so I always tell people that the most powerful office of the land is not the executive office, it's not the judicial branch, it's
No.
not the legislative branch. It is the office of the citizen. It is the
Yes.
people. The people are the most powerful office of this land. And so I try to let the voters in my district know that, but those are the issues amongst many. Of course, I care about environmental justice, reproductive
Right.
freedoms, protecting Social Security and Medicare, things like that. But I think that those are the top three that people in this district will really, really want their representative to work on.
See, I run into a
Absolutely.
different side of the gun violence epidemic. I grew up mostly in Columbus, Ohio. Yes, huge issue with gun violence there. But I've got relatives all over the state, and many of them live out in the boonies. they're either on farms or next door to farms, things like that. And so we run into a different issue out there of, obviously we are not going to take a pistol, a little hand pistol, and go out to scare off a, you know, predator that's come on the property and is after, for example, the chickens at a chicken farm. You know, we're going to take out a rifle. But
Yeah.
there's a balance between all of that. And I want you to get your view on this. Part of my view has always been it's easier to get a license to drive a car. Wait a minute. No, it's not. It's easier to go get a gun.
Right.
Mhm.
Let's flip that around. We have to do more to drive a car. We have to have more oversight to drive a car than
You
to
have to
get a
have
gun.
insurance.
And I honestly believe that our physical and mental health should be looked at as part of being able to get, weapons of that type. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I believe in the Second Amendment right. I believe in the right for people to own guns. I
Hmm.
believe that you should do that though in the realm of being trained, safety storage, and also
Oh,
us
yeah.
checking that you won't harm yourself or harm the public. Right. And so this is not about taking people's guns away because I don't believe in that.
Right.
I believe that we have to abide by that ability for people to have a right to the Second Amendment. So I do just want to preface that because I do think that that's a talking point of the NRA, the gun lobby, gun manufacturers, that people who support gun control or gun violence prevention in some way are advocating for guns to be snatched. I also do not believe that you need a high capacity gun that
Oh,
has
no.
100 bullets in a clip.
No.
That to me makes zero sense. And a good example of that is Uvalde, Texas, where
Yeah.
the tape came out of police officers, grown men, right, who would not go into that classroom because they heard the high power capacity of that gun going off as those children unfortunately were being ripped apart by a military grade weapon.
Right.
And also, I mean, most recently, the Charlie Kirk assassination, right? People saw in real time, unfortunately, what a military grade weapon could do to a grown man's body.
Yep.
So imagine what these children endured in these mass shootings
Oh, yeah.
and on the streets in
Mhm.
cities that are dealing with that. And
And let's
so,
go one step further on the Charlie Kirk thing. At the same time, it was ignored that there was another mass assassin, mass
at a
killing
school,
Mass
right?
at a
killing, yeah.
school, a mass shooting at a school while that was going on.
Yeah.
But one man being
And
shot overruled the
It
importance.
overtook the news, yeah.
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's gruesome. And I think that for his base of support, who has supported just free range of people getting access to guns that are not trained or that can harm themselves or harm the public, that
Right.
is a brutal reality. This violence does
Yeah.
not happen in a vacuum, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
to the other point that you talked about, which is a very important point that you brought up, Amy, about the insurance piece and like the steps and
Mhm.
process that go into owning a car and driving a car.
Right.
Mhm.
Um, the gun manufacturing industry is one of the most unchecked industries in the United States of America. And what
Yeah.
I mean by that is gun manufacturers are not held accountable for things like these mass shootings that occur.
Right.
And gun shops are not held accountable for some of these mass shootings that occur. And so I'll give you a real world example. If we went out to a bar and we got wasted at this bar,
Hmm.
and the bartender just decided to either just cut us off and send us home and say, okay, that's enough. You guys are really drunk. And we get in a car and then we get into
Oh,
a car accident and we kill someone.
yeah.
The family of that victim could sue us and they could sue the bar
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
negligence, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. I have
How is
the
it?
certifications to safe serve.
That's right. You have a due diligence to not be negligent in a situation where a reckless behavior can happen and harm the public or harm
Yeah,
someone who is participating in drinking, right?
Absolutely.
That is not the case for gun manufacturers and gun shops who willy nilly just give these guns out. On the point of it's easy to get a license, well, guess what? There are more restrictions in places like Georgia for you to vote than there is for you to get a gun. In
Yep.
places like Texas, who will
yeah,
not let their college students use their college ID, but will let college age students retrieve a gun, right? They will not let their, excuse me, they will not let their students use an ID to vote. They will let them basically retrieve a gun without an ID. And so this is a double standard. In
Yes.
a lot of these Republican states, it's almost as if they're more scared of the ballot than they are of the bullet, right? And so we have to be the ones to stand at the forefront and say, this is a huge generational issue for us. Right now, the CDC states that the number one cause of death of children in the United States
mhm.
of America is not cancer, not car accidents, not
Gun violence.
natural causes, it's guns.
Yep.
40,000 people a year die
The
by way
problem.
of gun violence, and that's 40,000 deaths that could have been avoided.
Right. And see, I have no problem with the idea of requiring people to go through gun safety classes. You know, I have no problem with the idea of being, having a psychiatrist give me a mental health check. I do have a problem with handing a gun to a 15-year-old
Right.
and expecting them to have complete control of themselves with that weapon.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
I know at 15, I did not have
Oh,
the
hell
mental capacity to understand the consequences of my actions.
Well, you couldn't even vote at 15,
no.
Right.
right? So
But
you can't even buy a lighter in a store at the age of 15. And
depends on
yet,
what state you're in.
and
In
yet,
Ohio, yes, you can.
well, I mean, majority of the
Right.
teenagers across this country, it's not a universal thing, but I feel like it is a universal culture in the
Hmm.
United States to have access to guns, whether legally or illegally. And a lot of the mass shootings that have happened were through straw purchases, meaning the parent bought it for the child. They were the legal gun owner who could buy the gun, and the child got access to the gun that way at Christmas or whatever. And so the argument that I just try to make and level set with people is that if more guns was the things that kept us safe, the United States would be the safest nation in the planet. We
I'm
have more
saying.
guns in this country for every man, woman, and child than anywhere across the globe. And it is ridiculous. And
I
it
It
has
is.
got to stop.
understand. I also think that there's a huge difference. Okay, my grandfather and his brother used to carry a gun to school every day,
Hmm.
literally. And this was in New Mexico. Okay, on the way home, they used that weapon to kill whatever they could find for meat for the stew pot because it was the Great Depression. They would take that
Wow.
meat then home to my great grandmother who would prep it and throw it in, you know, and they would walk on to my great grandfather's um, gas station where they would then bring their books and stuff. And in between customers, they would study, but they were the ones going out, filling the gas tanks, all that stuff. Back in the day when one person would be cleaning the windshield and checking the fluids, and the other person would be filling up the tank.
Mm.
How
My
old were
great
they?
grandfather would then be back in the shop working on cars.
Amy, how old were they?
Oh, God, they started that in elementary school aged.
Yeah.
But the difference was the way that our gun culture was back then. They
Right.
knew the dangers. A lot of our young people do not. They see, you know, oh, they're on a video game and then they pop back up and run through it again after they've been off in a game. There's a huge difference in the way that we raise our children today. Now, my nephews, on the other hand, were raised in an area that was rural. Like the whole county takes the first day of, hunting season off because they were losing so many students coming back that day that it just made no sense to have school that day. And those students grew up going with their parents out hunting deer. Okay. So they grew up with a difference in the way things are looked at with a weapon of that type. They knew the dangers. They knew, you know, they grew up with this is the safety, this is the way that we handle ourselves, you know, with the orange vest, you know, or something that definitely showed they were not some kind of wild creature running through the woods. And so there was a huge difference. And I look at it and I just go, okay, my nephews know how to handle a weapon. They've known how to since they were in by themselves since early middle school. Put into perspective, that's about age 12. Okay. Their whole district took the day off. That is how my sister kept meat on the table for my nephews and niece for a long time. And yet we flipped the script. And if they'd been raised in the city, that wouldn't be the case. I think there's a huge difference in rural versus city. However, there's got to be a balance between the two. And I see where you're coming from, and I agree a lot on where you're coming from. But it's like a teeter totter. How do we get that balance?
Well, I'll say this. This is what I'll say. Number one, I think you're 100% correct about both the historical and the cultural aspect of gun ownership. And so I'll give you me, for example. My grandparents were part of the Great Migration from the South,
Mhm.
fleeing the white citizens councils and the KKK members and the racism of places like Louisiana and Alabama and
Absolutely
coming to
understood.
Chicago. And so for a lot of Black Americans who we all, if we're in a major city in the North, we most more than likely migrated from the South. Someone in our lineage did, and they had to protect their families, and they did with guns.
Yes.
And so I understand that culture of particularly and namely of the South and all of the pretext and context around the Civil War, right?
Yeah.
For poor whites in the in the South, not saying that it's right or that it's wrong, but understanding a politics of meeting people where they are and
Yes.
and understanding that. And so I definitely do. I don't think that those folks are unreasonable. I think that exactly what you're saying, that they want to protect their persons, they want to protect their property, and we have been pushed a culture in America around a certain particular culture of violence around guns. Here's the second thing I'll say. Regardless of rural or city, the number
Hmm.
one way that we battle with gun violence epidemic, which is why I say that it is a public health issue, is because it's suicide and it's with handguns. So we do focus a lot on military grade style weapons like AR-15s, AK-47s, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, the most gun violence comes from handguns, 9 millimeter guns. And people literally taking their own lives because of mental health crises or breakdowns, or just unsafe storage, right? So suicide is actually the number one way. It takes up a big portion of that 40,000 plus people a year that die by way of gun violence. And
Right.
to me, that's a bigger question, once again, of preventative measures around things like access to mental health services, access to resources. So it's not just an advocacy piece, it's a literal healthcare piece. And so
Yes.
people ask, why do we see this as a public health epidemic? Is because even if it is violence, for example, that gun violence takes someone's lives, we know that violence is retaliatory and it's cyclical. It comes back around. And so that's very much like a virus, right? You want to stunt it before it continues to grow and more people retaliate and more people get into that cycle of violence. On the flip side of that, you have domestic violence, right? We
Hmm.
saw an uptick in gun violence during COVID where people had to shelter in place and they were stuck at home with their abusers.
Yep.
And women are 4 times more likely to die in a domestic dispute when their partner has a firearm in the house. And so these are, it's so layered and nuanced that I don't think that there's a clear cut black and white way of how we should handle it. I think it's not an either or, it's an and both of a multitude of ideas that have come out, brilliant ideas that come out from hospital interventions to gun buybacks to access to mental health services, treating gun violence as an epidemic and a public health crisis. There's not just one clear-cut way of how we're going to have to cut through this epidemic, but what I will say is that it is a public health issue. And I do, as the stance that I take as an advocate, as a survivor of
Yes.
gun violence prevention and a survivor of gun violence, is that we have to be sensitive to the cultural aspects of people who grew up around guns. We
Yes.
100% have to be sensitive, but not to the expense of the public or to their own safety.
Well, it's like I know in Ohio, if you have a history where there's been domestic violence against, or not against, but that you've caused, that getting a gun here is next to impossible at that point if you're buying them legally. But at the same time, there's so much that goes under the radar that that doesn't even stop somebody who really wants a gun from getting one. Um, so you're right. It's a balancing act. Mental health absolutely needs addressed. I agree with you on that. And then we look at what's actually going on, and they're trying to cut things like Medicaid funding and Medicare funding and all of those types of things that make me look at it and go, they don't care.
Yeah, that and also it's interesting to me. Two things are interesting and always stand out when we talk about these mass shootings. One is the healthcare conversation because they always say it's a mental health breakdown that this person had a mental da 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 da. Well, if that's the case, then invest in mental health services, and it's always coming from the representatives who voted against the
Yep.
extension of more healthcare coverage. So it's like,
Yep.
yeah, you shut up and get out of the conversation because you voted against the ability for
Right.
us to actually get access and expand access to mental health services. The second thing that does not get talked about a lot that I am extremely passionate about is
Hmm.
that this is a gender-based violence issue.
Yep.
Where 98% of mass shooters in this country are young men, namely young white men between
Yep.
younger than 24. So those are the ones who constantly get access to the guns, but they are also causing the mass shootings that
Yep.
are occurring. And a part of this is the disinformation and misinformation, this red pill culture, this incel culture, this culture of isolation that
Yeah.
breeds isolation. And I think that it leads to a lot of this violence. And so it's not preventative measures is not just snatching guns from people. It's
Right.
literally saying to these young men, you are not too far gone. We can pull you back into society. We can pull you back from this misinformation and disinformation and this rabbit hole that you went in deep down into. And let's
Yeah.
pull you back into community because that's ultimately what they're seeking is community. And so to me,
Yeah.
I think we've glossed over for far too long that this is a gender-based violence issue.
Mm, it can be. It depends. But I do
It
see the
mostly
statistics
is.
that you bring up.
Me and my
Well, I mean,
husband have had deep conversations about specifically about um the incel and um the the gun violence in young white men and what the
they're
isolation
targeted. They target them.
they they do they do. And yeah, there are some things where women are in there too, but it is primarily young white men.
I think a lack of teaching critical thinking ability to our young people is also a huge part of this. Their own ability to think for themselves is so different than my grandfather's era, for example. It's like I look at it and I go, wait a minute. You can't look at fact A, fact B, and fact C and go, oh, logic leads
because it
you to conclusion D, you
because
know.
everything has been so propagandized
Yeah.
That's
that
true.
there's no more critical thinking for the most part if
But I
you're
mean,
on.
it does beg the question of why are not more folks who identify as women or in the feminine, why are they not participating in high rates in this level of violence,
Mm,
right? And I think a part of it, I can answer a part of that is because the community that
Yeah,
is cultivated around women, cultivated, around folks and a sense of belonging to those
okay.
communities. And when we have a collective community, and we are a part and attached in some way in any community. It doesn't have to be some binary of thing. It's
yeah,
just that you are associated or attached to a community. That is an accountability metric that you have. There are social standards around being a part of those communities, and people will call you out for being a shitty person, or if they feel like you haven't been around or you're slipping away, or they feel like you might be going through depression or going through something, they will pull you back in. And I
Right.
feel that these young men, because a lot of them have identified as men, right? And I'm really going off of the identifiers, and maybe that's a little unfair that the media automatically identified them that way, because we don't often hear from them ourselves. Um, but as they are being perceived by the public as young white cis men.
Right.
And I think that that is very telling to me. And this is not something new, Amy. This is something we could go all the way back to Columbine, right?
Right.
So this is a tradition and a history of copycats who do the same exact thing. And I think that a part of that is because
Hmm.
it's a lack of being associated with the community. There's a lack of accountability metric for that, right? It's a lack of connection. And I think that that's the more human, metaphysical, probably um, explanation for it. People want to jump immediately into the policy, but like I like to look at the heart of the matter, right? What would
Yeah.
drive
So
someone to do that?
when we look at things like Columbine, I have to wonder, and a lot of these mass shootings, I have to wonder what was that person that did the shooting themselves? What were they going through? I feel bad for them too, because they must have gone through heck in a handbasket to get
Hmm.
to the point of feeling that the only option was to kill other people.
Right.
And where were their
that
needs dropped
isolationist.
to prevent them from finding the help that they needed to keep from
So
going to that level?
Mm-hmm.
some of the stuff that I remember, because I remember Columbine, I was a teenager. Some of the things that I remember specifically, um, was I don't know if either of you remember something that they deemed satanic panic,
Mm-hmm.
where teenagers were getting bullied for dressing and acting very much how I dress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that mainstream, like children who didn't look like me, were bullied to the point where they felt they didn't have any other, I don't want to say reason, that they didn't see any other way out of the bullying. Like I know a girl who is a YouTuber who, her whole class that were goths got chased into the lunchroom and they had to like barricade themselves in
Right.
because like the school was going after them and like pushing them downstairs and running them across the streets. And it got really bad because people were villainizing the way people dressed and accounted it as they were satanic children, and it scared people into being the way that I would say Republicans can be towards Democrats now. Like we're evil, we're satanic, we're this. Like they're trying to make it to where saying, just the most disgusting things about people dehumanizes them in your
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah. I was
And
gonna
in my
say,
day, it was people who looked like that or people they thought were lesbian or gay,
yeah,
Yeah,
and it goes clear back in history. There's always an other. And I
yeah,
think that's the biggest problem that we run into is the othering of people.
right. Right.
yeah,
Well, I would definitely say that a core, I think both of you are hitting it on the head about the dehumanizing culture. That
Mm-hmm.
is, I mean, look at these ICE raids that are
yeah,
happening. The way that they started was even the language that they use, illegal alien and, just foreign to, and it's like, wait, no human being is illegal,
yeah. I try to
right? You're a
correct
human.
people when they
I've
say
gotten into the
illegals.
practice, right, of correcting people because
Mm-hmm.
we have to push back on narratives like that.
Right.
It, it is the idea that if we can create an echo chamber of dehumanizing people or othering, as you were saying,
Right.
and we can strip them of their rights, people will agree with that. They will accept it. They will not push back on that and they will
Yeah,
agree with us on it.
yeah,
And so it's in a very intentional and a systematic way. That's why, to go back, why I stated that this is a gender-based violence issue,
Mm.
because there's a lot of dehumanizing of women
Oh,
in America,
yeah.
right? And
Yep.
the idea that we should not have power, we should not, that's why the incel community targeted
yeah,
young men to take back this. Why? Because women are getting more educated. They're starting more small businesses. They are advancing more in life. So what did they do?
yeah,
They did it piece by piece. They said DEI is an issue.
Mm.
They said affirmative action is an issue. Roe versus Wade is an issue. So we have to gut it, right? So little by
Yeah.
little, they have had these victories, but it's built off of the back of the electorate being swayed by this constant inundating of podcast streams and talking points and viral clips of men absolutely dehumanizing women
yeah,
and demonizing them.
Well,
And so,
and
and it's the
they
same thing with people
try
of
to
color.
do the same thing with race. And I'm sorry, but
Right,
the melanin in someone's skin has nothing to do with whether you're human or not.
right. It's the same exact. I mean, America is a perfect case study of that. Slavery, chattel slavery.
Yeah.
It's this country is not just a bunch of people standing on stolen land. It was actually built by a stolen people,
Yeah.
right? So that is the impetus of the United States of America. And until we actually deal with that, because we have never
Hmm.
truly dealt with it,
Never.
repair from the harm that was caused, we will always have these tensions that exist, in my opinion, right?
Yep.
And so
I
this goes
agree.
a lot deeper than just the under the soft white underbelly of this incel community is white nationalism. It
Yeah.
is a white Christo-fascist nationalist mindset that Christianity is the dominant religion. White men should be at the hierarchy of this country, leading everything and anything. And everybody else who pushes back on that, whether you are a Black woman, white woman, Asian, Latino, anything, then you are also a part of the problem. And so, there is a Brittany Packnett who is an amazing author and activist from Ferguson. Actually, she had a saying that she says, and she said to white women, your whiteness will not protect you for what the patriarchy has for you.
Right.
And
And that
so
is
this
true.
constant battle that we have
Yeah.
electorally, where white women vote against their own self-interest for somebody like Donald Trump, who is an admitted rapist, an admitted sexual assaulter. Um,
Yeah.
he's just completely corrupt, right? Complete no credibility. And he will straight up tell you that he thinks white men should be at the head of things, like from his policies to the way that he speaks about other communities. And consistently, they have voted overwhelmingly for him. And I think that it's a lot deeper than just our policies or our messaging not being good. This is a lot of unlearning that has to be done across the country.
Right.
Yeah. One of
And I
the
like where you came
hold
at
on,
this from the very
Amy,
beginning
Amy,
earlier.
man.
Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
All right. Um, so Kina, you're aware, Amy, you're obviously aware I volunteer for Move On. And I am surrounded with some of the most amazing Black women that
Yes.
are my co-leads and my bosses. And I've had discussions with them because one of my best friends, um, I had been trying to get her to volunteer, and she's just like, I'm tired. Like, I just, I'm so tired.
Right.
And I told her, I'm like, you know what, sis, because that's like my sister from another mister.
Mm,
Um,
I love her
I told her,
dearly
I'm like,
too.
I said, I understand where you're coming from. I said, so sit down, rest your bones. Like, I got you. Like, I will do the fighting for both of us. And I had relayed that to some of the women I work with at Move On. And they were like, well, Nicole, she's they said, you know that there were white women out there helping in the Underground Railroad. She's
Hmm.
like, so, they're like, so, like, this ain't nothing new. Like, they were just very, because I told them, like, I'm here for y'all. Like, if you need to sit down, let me take that on. Like,
Yeah, let me
and
lift you up. Mm.
right. And they were happy to hear me say it. But just also the fact that I was explaining what I had said to one of my best friends because she was ready to move out the country. And
I have a child who's ready to as well for the same reason.
yeah, and it's just like we it kind of in the way of you were speaking about the woman from Ferguson, like we're all in this together. Like,
No, that's the problem, Nicole. We're not.
no, us, no, like
Those on this side are,
those on this side are, yeah,
but waking up the people who aren't is difficult at best, as you know from personal experience.
It's
right.
exhausting.
It
And there's
is.
only so much grace they deserve before you just keep moving it.
Mm,
I mean,
absolutely.
So I think that I'm obviously was a part of the 92% of Black women who voted for Kamala Harris.
yeah,
Not because I agreed with all of her policies.
Right.
Agreed
Same
with
here
probably
as far as a white woman goes. Not because I agreed with all of her policies. I felt that she was the best choice.
right. I mean, even outside of her being the best choice because she was far more qualified than Donald Trump, I felt that as a movement space, as a leftist, that her administration would have been more common sense to organize under
yeah,
and push for things that we may have needed, not to
Yes.
put the constitutional risk of people um, at the forefront, right? And I think that a lot of Black women in this country knew that when Donald Trump got elected, what that would mean because we've been organizing on the front lines forever.
Yeah.
And so I think people were so caught up in the things that they didn't like about her that they didn't
yeah,
quite take a look at the things that they could have worked with her on, but also how they would have been able to push back on a Kamala Harris administration, right? On
absolutely.
issues that could have brought compromise in some way.
She would
And
have been so much more compromising.
yeah, and I mean, even if she wasn't, it would have been easier for us to mobilize,
Yeah,
Yes.
meaning our constitutional rights wouldn't have been violated in the
yeah,
process of organizing. And so rest is radical. Rest is radical revolution to me. And I hear that a lot, and I actually get that a lot from people where they say, well, you've run for office, but where have you been in between running for office? And part of that is, I know, Amy, I'm like, okay. A
Yeah.
part of that is number one, I am still organizing or working on things. And another part of that is I'm resting, right? And I think that we should not be ashamed to say that because Black women historically have been everything for everyone all the time and every
Right.
time.
yeah,
Right.
And
I
so
mean, there's
this
a
idea,
balance that must be struck because we are all human.
right, but this idea though is a very capitalistic idea that your worth comes for how much work you are constantly outputting. Whereas rest being a radical revolutionary political stance is to be anti-capitalist and say, I'm not doing work. I'm not a mule. I'm not a pack mule for the Democratic Party. I'm not a pack mule for the progressives. I'm not a pack mule for my family or for my
yeah,
community. If I do something and I organize, it's because I want to do it and because it is a part of the collective.
Right.
And so giving that autonomy to Black women to either be in space or to step away, I think is more telling when I see people requesting and demanding things out of them constantly. And so it doesn't offend me as much that I don't see as many Black women on the front lines or organizing in the rooms or, they're resting. And some people make that's uncomfortable for some people, but it was also uncomfortable for us to see those election results roll in.
Right.
And really, if we're getting at the core of it, Kamala Harris didn't win not because she wasn't qualified or, people can give whatever. It was really a backlash on her being a Black woman. There is a putting Black women in their place when people feel like they have stepped outside of the box of what people have put us in. And even the way, from her own admission from her book, 107 Days, she talks about party leaders and superstar Democrats who obstructed. They knew what was on the line and they obstructed the ability for her to step forward and to lead because of their own selfish ambition or because they didn't want a black woman, in office. And so I think rest is a revolutionary tactic, in my
Yes,
opinion.
it really is. And it's
Sorry,
something
I'm
we all
coming
need
back.
to spend more time doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
So
know.
yeah, I'm glad that you're having those conversations, Nicole, because I do think that right now, especially with the ICE raids going on and everything, they're like, where are
Yeah,
people? Where's the black community? The black community is exhausted.
yeah,
Hmm.
We are
absolutely.
exhausted.
Yep.
And I think that once again, as a community and as a collective, not everybody, because I see black folks come out to the protests, not as many in mass, but I see some are making the choice to come out. But I think it is the anti-capitalistic stance to rest.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so I implore people to use that more in the movement because the goal of the fascist authoritarian regime is to throw as much stuff at us as possible and tire us out and burn us out
Oh, yeah.
so that they can conquer.
Now, having been a
Exactly.
leader in some of the communities over time, one of the biggest things that I will tell people right, left, upside down, and sideways is if you think you're about to burn out, take a break. Take, a month, 2 months, whatever you need, and then come back in
Right.
refreshed and
We
more
need you in
capable.
the fight at the end. Like, if you need
Hmm.
to rest and take your time and do what you need to do for yourself for a
Absolutely.
time being, I'm here to pick that weight up for you because we will need you again.
Yes. Well, it has been a pleasure meeting you.
Thank
And
you.
I really, really, really pray you make it into office because you have the right ideas. You have the ability to obviously to negotiate with people from different
Yeah.
viewpoints and backgrounds, which you've shown in this interview. And I appreciate that because it's huge. Now, to give you a little peek into my background, the
Hmm.
area I was talking about where my sister
Hmm.
lives, they still have part of the Underground Railway up there.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
can actually go down under the ground from place to place in certain parts of that area where they hid people, they helped them move forward, they helped them find a way to get up to the north, further north than even us, safely. You know, it is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And I mean that's just a rich culture and tradition that surviving that and being
Yeah.
from the lineage of those who are descendants of chattel slavery here in the United States is that there is too much at stake right now.
Yes.
For us, for me personally, who's been doing the base building and the name recognition building and answering the tough questions of voters,
Yeah.
that we cannot allow them to dismantle the Voting Rights Act.
No, we
That's our
cannot. And they're
inheritance.
trying so hard.
They're trying extremely hard and they're succeeding in some ways, and in other ways, they're losing.
Hmm.
And we, will be the generation and the group of people that say enough is enough. And so, my ultimate dream and goal is that we call for a general strike across the United States of America. Everyone
Yes.
stop working, stop
Yes.
shipping cargo, stop participating in this economy. I want people to completely, the president is building a $300 million ballroom in the White House, right? Ripping the White House apart while SNAP benefits are being cut. Everybody needs to cancel
Yeah.
the holidays. Cancel them. No
Yeah.
toys, no grocery shopping for the foods that we traditionally do for holidays. Make these millionaires and billionaires feel it that the American people are fed up. We cannot stay and sustain in an economy that is
Yeah.
built on our backs but will not lift us up when we need it. And
You know
so,
what? And I
Absolutely.
have approached leaders with that same view. We
yeah.
are 100% on board with one another.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Amy. And
Thank
please, I
you.
hope that you will have me back eventually when we win.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
I will put your volunteer and donation links in our description and all that because I have all that stuff.
Thank you, family. Love y'all. Thank you.
Love
Y'all
You're
have a
you.
nice
welcome.
night.
Love you, Kina.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
All of y'all, any of you that see this, please go to the description and look up her donation link and donate 2, 5, 10, whatever you can donate. This is a people powered campaign. Also, if you have time and availability, please sign up to volunteer for her. She is definitely going to need all of our help. I
Yes.
am going to be one of those people that is intricate in getting her volunteer group back together. So if you can help, please help.
I absolutely loved that you brought her in, Nicole, because I'm looking at her and I'm going, that's what we need.
She
People that
is.
can have reasonable discussion
Yeah.
and who can think for themselves and their
Yeah.
area while
Yeah.
understanding what other areas of the country are going through.
Absolutely.
There aren't
She's
that many of them out there
she
who
is
understand.
why. Yeah. She is one of the reasons I continued to stay interested in politics after after Justice Democrats because I know she would have won had it not been for Biden as well as um, the leadership coming out and basically costing her election because yeah, it was 5,000 on election day, but I promise you, weeks before the election, they were neck and neck, if not her in the lead.
Right.
Uh, she had the realest shot of anybody that I've worked with through Justice Democrats. She had the most promise of being elected because she was the closest in the polls. Her
Right.
and Jessica Cisneros. And APAC came in and leadership came in and screwed both of them out of their spots, which is why I'm so happy that Danny Davis is retiring because I think she really will win this year, well, next year. But yeah, I think that she's got the best shot this year of all years to make it through primaries and kick ass in the general because she has a lot of name right. Like she's not lying. She has been sustaining her base. Um, she has people who were already ready to volunteer for her before
He
my
announced.
right, myself included. But she has quite a few people already on her team, and I haven't made a single call yet to volunteers. So yeah, she's she's got people who believe in her and believe that she can win.
And that
And
the most telling thing that she gave me in our conversation was that she was putting the people first and what they wanted
yeah,
first by removing her ego from it.
Yeah,
because that's the most telling thing you want in someone in office is that
yeah,
it's not about them, that they are there to take care of you.
right. That's how she's always been this way, and this is why she's always been such a threat
Hmm.
to the neo-con Dems.
Yep. And
'Cause-
I think we're probably needing to step away at this point for tonight.
okay. I was going to say one last thing about her is that
Hmm.
she not only is somebody who can bring together people and can talk to you from where you're
Hmm.
at, but she's also somebody I truly believe can make waves in Congress in being leadership for the Progressive Caucus.
I think that she is more than happy to speak truth to power, and that's what we need.
Yes, I agree. All right. Then since yeah, we've been going for a while, so let's call it for the night.
All right. I love
All
you,
right,
sis.
sweetie. Love you too, and we will be in touch and I will get all her links and all that good stuff up
Her
when I
site.
upload this. Yeah.
All righty.
All right, I'll see you later.
All right. Bye.
Well, thank you everybody for sitting for another episode of Politics After Dark. Um, like I said, take a look in the description. You will see Kina's link to her website where you can volunteer and also make any donations. And I will put any other prudent information needed in there. So, peace and love, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around. Bye bye.